It was a quiet Tuesday evening when the whole atmosphere in our home shifted. The kitchen was filled with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the aroma of garlic bread baking in the oven. I had just gotten home from a long day at work. Kicked off my heels and walked toward the living room. I noticed how eerily silent the house was. Normally, the sound of the television or my husband's deep voice chatting with his son would greet me. But that night was different. My name is Rebecca. I'm a 38-year-old marketing executive living in Denver, Colorado. I married David 3 years ago, and along with him came his then-teenage son, Ethan. At first, our relationship was rocky. Ethan was reserved, rarely spoke. It always seemed to carry this invisible weight on his shoulders. His mother had passed away for years before I met David, and the grief was still thick in his eyes. I understood that I could never replace her, nor did I want to. I only hoped to be a stable, supportive presence in his life. But building trust takes time. In the beginning, Ethan barely looked at me. He would nod if I spoke to him, respond, with short answers, and quickly retreat to the solitude of his room. David assured me that it wasn't personal, that Ethan had always been introverted, and that I just needed to give it time. And I did. Over time, things slowly began to change. Ethan began to sit at the dinner table with us instead of taking his plate to his room. He started saying good morning, occasionally even laughing at my silly jokes. I never pushed too hard. I wanted our bond to develop naturally. But on that particular Tuesday night, something felt off. As I set my bag down and walked toward the hallway, I noticed Ethan's door slightly ajar. The light was on. I knocked softly. "Ethan," I called gently. There was no response. I pushed the door open a bit more and saw him sitting on the edge of his bed, his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. His face was pale, his jaw clenched, and his eyes, those normally guarded hazel eyes, looked red and puffy. "Ethan," I said again, stepping inside. "Is everything okay?" He didn't look at me at first. I could tell he was struggling with something. After a long silence, he finally muttered, "It's nothing. I'm fine." But I knew he wasn't. Something deep in my gut told me this was a moment that mattered. So I sat on the edge of the bed, keeping a respectful distance. "You don't have to tell me what's wrong," I said softly. "But I want you to know that if you ever want to talk, I'm here." He still didn't speak, but his fingers trembled slightly as they gripped the edge of the bed. He looked up at me. "Do you ever feel like you're just invisible, like nobody actually sees you?" The question hit me hard, not because I hadn't heard things like that before, but because of who it was coming from. This boy who had spent years keeping the world at arm's length. "Yes," I replied truthfully. "I've felt that way before, especially when I was younger." He nodded slowly, biting his lip. "At school, I don't have many friends. And at home, I know you. And Dad try, but I just feel like I don't belong anywhere." My heart broke a little, hearing those words. I didn't know what had triggered this spiral, but I couldn't let him sit in that darkness alone. I moved a little closer, still careful not to crowd him. "You do belong," I told him. "You belong here with us, with your dad, with me." He looked down again, and I noticed his shoulders shaking slightly. Tears began to fall, quiet, unforced. "I miss my mom," he whispered. I nodded, feeling tears prick at my own eyes. "Of course you do." For a while, we just sat in silence. Then something unexpected happened. He leaned over and rested his head on my shoulder. I hesitated for a second, then wrapped an arm around him. It felt like the first real connection we'd had in a long time, honest, raw, and deeply human. We stayed like that for several minutes. I didn't speak, didn't try to offer solutions. I just sat with him, letting him feel whatever he needed to feel. That night marked a turning point. Over the following weeks, Ethan started to open up more. He'd join me in the kitchen while I cooked, sometimes asking to help chop vegetables or stir sauces. He'd tell me little things about his day, classes he liked, shows he was watching. I made it a point never to probe too deeply, only asking questions when it felt appropriate. Slowly, our bond began to grow stronger. One evening, he brought home a flyer from school. "They're doing a photography exhibition next month," he said, placing it on the counter. I was thinking about submitting something. I was genuinely surprised. I hadn't known he was interested in photography. That's amazing, I said. Do you have something in mind? He smiled a little, a hint of pride on his face. I've been working on a few shots, nature stuff. I think I want to do a series on light and shadows. I encouraged him, offered to help him gather supplies, and even took him to a nearby park known for its beautiful landscapes. We spent the whole afternoon there, him behind the lens, me watching quietly as he captured the world in his own unique way. That weekend, we printed out a few of his favorite shots. They were stunning, moody, textured, full of emotion. One of the pictures, a beam of light cutting through a forest of dark pine trees, stood out in particular. This one, I said, pointing to it. It's powerful. He looked at it, then looked at me. It kind of reminds me of you. I was taken aback. What do you mean you're like that light? He said quietly, cutting through all the darkness. I didn't know what to say. It was one of the most moving things anyone had ever said to me. When the exhibition day arrived, David and I both went with Ethan. He was nervous, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. But when people began to stop and admire his photos, I could see his confidence grow. Afterward, we went out for burgers to celebrate. David was beaming with pride in Ethan. He was glowing in a way I hadn't seen before. Later that night, as I was cleaning up the kitchen, Ethan came up behind me. Hey, he said. Thanks for everything, for listening that day, for being there. I know I don't always say it, but it means a lot. I smiled. You don't have to thank me. I'm just glad you let me in. He hugged me then, a full, strong hug. No hesitation, no awkwardness. From that moment on, things truly changed. Our house felt warmer. Laughter became more frequent. And for the first time, I felt like not just a stepmother, but a real part of Ethan's world. Life moved forward. Graduated high school, got accepted into a college photography program, and every milestone along the way, we celebrated together. Still had quiet days. Of course, we all do. But he knew he wasn't alone anymore. Looking back, I realized that moment stepping into his room that Tuesday evening wasn't just about comforting him. It was the beginning of something bigger, of trust, of healing, of family. So when people ask me what it's like being a stepmother, I tell them it's not always easy. There are walls you have to break through, moments that test your patience, and times when you question if you're making any difference at all. But then something happens, something small, like a hug or a thank you, and you realize it was all worth it.